They laughed in my face when they said I was just a wife, a shadow behind a powerful man. But they had no idea that those words would ignite a fire that would burn down everything he once held dear. Standing in that room full of tech moguls and venture capitalists, being dismissed like yesterday's news, I felt something shift inside me. They saw a trophy wife. What they couldn't see was the CEO I was about to become, one who would make their precious golden boy look like an amateur playing dress-up in Silicon Valley. My name is Lauren Mitchell, and until 6 months ago, I believed supporting my husband's dreams was the same as living my own. I was 34, with an MBA gathering dust in a drawer somewhere, living in a glass house overlooking the Denver skyline that felt more like a pristine cage with each passing day. I'd given up my consulting career at Deloitte to become the invisible force behind Ethan Caldwell's meteoric rise in the tech world. Board meetings prep at 2 a.m., investor pitches refined over cold coffee, strategy sessions that bled into dawn. I was there for all of it, just never in the spotlight. The startup mixer that November evening was supposed to be another routine performance. Smile, network. Play the supportive wife while Ethan worked the room like he owned it. The Ritz-Carlton ballroom buzzed with that particular energy of ambitious people pretending they weren't desperately hungry for success. I stood near the bar, watching Ethan hold court with a group of investors, his laugh carrying across the room like a victory bell. "Lauren, darling." Marcus Webb, one of Novosphere's board members, approached with his usual condescending smile. "How nice to see you out and about. Must be refreshing to leave the house for something other than Pilates." I forced a laugh, the kind I'd perfected over 5 years of these events. "Actually, Marcus, I've been reviewing the Q3 projections. The consumer acquisition costs seem—" "Oh, sweetheart," he interrupted, patting my shoulder like I was a confused child. "Let's leave the business talk to the professionals, shall we? Ethan tells us you make an excellent pot roast, though." The group around him chuckled. One of the younger VCs, barely out of Stanford, added, "It's sweet how you try to understand what Ethan does. My girlfriend does the same thing with my crypto portfolio." That's when Ethan appeared, sliding an arm around my waist with practiced ownership. "Gentlemen, be nice to my better half. She keeps me fed and the house running smoothly while I build the future." He kissed my temple, a gesture that once felt loving but now felt like a pat on the head. Though I do have to translate most of the technical stuff into shopping terms for her to understand. The laughter that followed was like shattered glass in my ears. I stood there, my Wharton education and years of strategic thinking reduced to a punchline. One of the investors, a woman I'd actually hoped might be different, shook her head with faux sympathy. "It must be challenging, Lauren, watching from the sidelines, but someone has to be the support system, right? Not everyone's meant to be a player." "She's not a player," Ethan corrected, squeezing me tighter. "She's just a wife, and that's exactly what I need her to be." Just a wife. The words hung in the air like a public execution. I excused myself to the bathroom, my heels clicking against marble with metronomic precision. In the mirror, I saw what they saw. Blonde hair professionally styled, designer dress that Ethan had picked out, diamond earrings that screamed, "Kept woman." But behind my carefully made-up eyes, something had finally snapped. I returned to the party, but I was no longer present. While they celebrated Ethan's latest funding round, I was already planning my resurrection. They thought they knew who I was, the pretty accessory, the suburban housewife playing at business understanding, the woman who'd sacrificed her ambitions for a man who now wore her surrender like a badge of honor. What they didn't know was that every dismissive laugh, every condescending explanation of basic concepts I'd mastered years ago, every "just a wife" was being carefully cataloged. They didn't know about the journals I'd kept, documenting every strategy I developed that Ethan had claimed as his own. They didn't know about the connections I'd quietly maintained from my consulting days, or the late nights I'd spent keeping up with emerging technologies while Ethan thought I was reading romance novels. That night, driving home in silence while Ethan buzzed about the successful evening, I made a decision. If I was going to be underestimated, dismissed, and diminished, then I would use their blindness as my advantage. They would never see me coming. Just a wife. I smiled in the darkness of our Tesla, watching the Denver lights blur past. They had no idea those 3 words had just created their worst nightmare. A woman with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. The unraveling started 3 months after that humiliating night. I found them in our bed, Ethan and Sophia Martinez, a 26-year-old UX designer from Novosphere with an MBA from Berkeley and legs that went on forever. The cliché of it all would have been laughable if it hadn't been my life imploding in real time. "Lauren, this isn't," Ethan started, scrambling for the Egyptian cotton sheets I'd picked out for our 5th anniversary. "What it looks like," I finished, my voice surprisingly steady. "Please, Ethan. At least respect me enough not to insult my intelligence. Not anymore." Sophia had the decency to look mortified, gathering her clothes with shaking hands. As she rushed past me, smelling of my husband's cologne and her own desperation, she whispered, "I'm sorry." I almost felt bad for her. Almost. She was just another ambitious young woman who thought sleeping with the boss was a shortcut to success. She'd learn, just like I had, that Ethan only promoted one person, himself. The divorce proceedings were a masterclass in cruelty. Ethan's lawyer, a shark in Armani named Richard Blackwood, dismantled my life with surgical precision. The prenup I'd signed in the haze of young love became my financial death sentence. Mrs. Caldwell contributed no monetary investment to Novosphere, Blackwood stated, adjusting his gold-rimmed glasses. Her role was explicitly defined as domestic support. I sat in that sterile conference room, watching Ethan avoid my eyes while his legal team reduced 5 years of my strategic thinking, my sacrificed career, my invisible labor to domestic support. The house? Gone. The investment accounts? His. The car? Company property? Even my engagement ring, a family heirloom from my grandmother, was somehow classified as a marital asset to be liquidated. "You'll receive $40,000. My lawyer, a tired public defender equivalent in family law, informed me. And monthly alimony of $2,000 for 1 year. $40,000. That was the price tag on 5 years of my life. My abandoned career, my evaporated dreams. Ethan made that in 2 days. The day I moved out, Denver was unseasonably cold, snow falling like ash from a gray sky. I packed my clothes, my books, and the only thing Ethan hadn't fought for, my old laptop from Deloitte, outdated and worthless in his eyes. He stood in the doorway of what used to be our home. Sophia already moved into what used to be my space, visible through the window like a replacement part installed before the warranty expired. "Lauren," he called out as I loaded the last box into my used Honda Civic, a far cry from the Tesla I'd been driving yesterday. "This is for the best. You were never cut out for this world. You'll be happier doing—" He gestured vaguely. "Whatever it is you're going to do." I turned to face him one last time, memorizing the smug satisfaction poorly disguised as concern. "You're right, Ethan. I was never cut out for your world." I slammed the trunk. I was meant for something bigger. He laughed, actually laughed. "Sure, Lauren. Good luck with that." The studio apartment in Capitol Hill was a universe away from our Cherry Creek mansion. 600 square feet, water stains on the ceiling, radiator that clanged like a ghost in chains. I sat on the floor that first night, eating ramen from a paper cup, surrounded by boxes I couldn't bring myself to unpack. The city lights through my single window looked like stars I couldn't reach. My phone buzzed with texts from mutual friends, their sympathy as shallow as a puddle in drought. The narrative was already set. Lauren couldn't keep her man, couldn't compete with a younger model, couldn't handle the pressure of being a tech wife. Poor Lauren, just wasn't enough. But in the darkness of that cramped space, something alchemical happened. The humiliation transformed into something harder, sharper. I opened my old laptop, its fan wheezing with effort, and began writing. Not a diary or a cathartic letter I'd never send. A business plan, Every insult became fuel. Every dismissive comment, a reminder of what I had to prove. Every just a wife echoed in that empty apartment until it stopped sounding like a verdict and started sounding like a battle cry. I pulled up my old contacts from Deloitte, professors from Wharton, colleagues who'd wondered why I'd disappeared. My fingers flew across the keyboard, drafting emails I wouldn't send yet, plans I wasn't ready to execute. But the foundation was being laid, brick by brick, in the rubble of my former life. At 3 a.m., I finally stopped typing. My manifesto was simple, written on a post-it note I stuck to my bathroom mirror. They thought they buried me. They didn't know I was a seed. Ethan had taken everything he thought had value. What he'd left me with was something he couldn't recognize as valuable. The fury of a woman with nothing left to lose, the intelligence he'd dismissed, and the strategic mind he'd never bothered to acknowledge. He was about to learn that the most dangerous opponent isn't the one you see coming. It's the one you've already written off. The rebirth began in a Starbucks on 17th Street, where the Wi-Fi was free and the baristas had stopped asking if I was okay after seeing me there 12 hours a day. My savings were hemorrhaging. Rent, ramen, and the occasional replacement phone charger when mine finally gave up. But every dollar spent was an investment in revenge refined as ambition. Environmental data analytics, my former Deloitte colleague, Priya Patel, looked skeptical over her oat milk latte. Lauren, that's a brutal market. The big players have it locked down. The big players are thinking big, I countered, pulling up the presentation I'd been perfecting for weeks. I'm thinking smart. Small municipalities, rural co-ops, agricultural operations drowning in environmental compliance data but can't afford Oracle or SAP solutions. There's a gap. Priya scrolled through my slides, her expression shifting from doubt to intrigue. This is actually brilliant, but you need capital, a team, infrastructure. I need believers, I corrected, starting with you. That's how Lynx Dynamics was born, not in a gleaming office or a venture capital boardroom, but at a sticky coffee shop table with 3 people crazy enough to believe in a divorced woman's fever dream. Priya brought her technical expertise, James Washington, a former Microsoft engineer tired of building rich men's toys, brought his coding genius and a bitter understanding of being undervalued. Maria Santos, who'd been laid off from a competing firm while pregnant, brought her sales acumen and a contact list worth its weight in gold. We worked out of James's garage in Aurora, 4 laptops running on stolen electricity from his understanding neighbor. I'd wake at 4 a.m., code until my eyes burned, pitch to potential clients during lunch breaks at their offices, then come back to debug until 2 a.m., rinse and repeat. My hands developed a permanent tremor from caffeine overdose. I forgot what day it was most weeks. The rejections came like an avalanche. 37 venture capital firms said no. Most didn't even let me finish my pitch. Mrs. Caldwell, excuse me, Ms. Mitchell. One particularly condescending VC interrupted 15 minutes into my presentation. This is adorable, really. But perhaps you should consider something more. Achievable? Maybe a consulting practice, something part-time? Another fund partner, a woman I'd hoped would understand, shook her head sadly. Lauren, I heard about your divorce. This seems like a rebound reaction. Take some time, heal, maybe date a little. Starting a tech company isn't therapy. The 40th rejection came with a twist. David Kim from Elevation Partners actually listened to the entire pitch. Your technology is solid, he admitted. But investing in Ethan Caldwell's ex-wife? That's a PR nightmare we can't afford. He's a major player. You're complicated. Complicated. Code 4, damaged goods. That night, I sat in my car in the parking lot, my entire body shaking. Not from tears, I'd run out of those weeks ago, but from pure, white-hot rage. They wouldn't fund me because of Ethan, because I was his discarded wife. The narrative was already written, and I was just a footnote in his success story. Fuck the narrative, Maria said when I told the team. She was 6 months pregnant, coding with swollen fingers, eating antacids like candy. We don't need their money. She was right. We bootstrapped with a vengeance. Priya maxed out her credit cards. James sold his motorcycle. I pawned everything. My grandmother's jewelry, designer bags from my past life, even my wedding dress on eBay for $500 to a hopeful bride who didn't need to know its history. Our first break came from an unexpected source. Thomas Muller, facilities manager for the city of Fort Collins, needed to track solar panel efficiency across municipal buildings, but had a budget that wouldn't buy him a week of Oracle's time. "Can you really deliver this for $20,000? He asked, skeptical. "We'll do it for 15, I countered, ignoring Priya's sharp intake of breath. "But we want a case study and a reference." We delivered in 3 weeks. The platform was rough, held together by James's coding wizardry and prayer. But it worked. Fort Collins saved $300,000 in the first quarter. Word spread through the municipal network like wildfire. Boulder called, then Aspen, then Pueblo. Small contracts, nothing Ethan or his ilk would notice. We were ants building an empire, one grain of sand at a time, invisible to the giants stomping overhead. 6 months in, living on 5 hours of sleep and sustained by a diet of pure determination. I stood in our new office, a 2-room suite in a strip mall. But it was ours. The team had grown to 8. We had 12 clients and our first 6-figure contract with the Colorado Department of Agriculture. "We need investment to scale," James said, pulling up our growth projections. "We're leaving money on the table." I stared at the numbers, then at my reflection in the window. I'd lost 15 pounds. My hair was showing gray I couldn't afford to color, and my eyes had developed a permanent intensity that scared me sometimes. But I was no longer the woman who'd been laughed at in the Ritz-Carlton ballroom. "Then we get investment," I said. "But this time, we don't ask. We make them come to us." The game was changing. Link's dynamics was no longer a revenge fantasy scribbled on a post-it note. It was real, it was growing, and it was about to become impossible to ignore, even for Ethan Caldwell. The collision was inevitable. 18 months after my divorce, Link's Dynamics entered the bid for the Colorado Energy Commission's statewide environmental monitoring system, a $50 million contract that would establish the winner as the regional leader in green tech solutions. Novasphere was the incumbent favorite. I found out Ethan knew about us when Sofia Martinez walked into our office on a Tuesday afternoon. She'd lost the fresh-faced eagerness, replaced by something harder, more familiar. She looked like me 2 years ago. "He wants to buy you out," she said without preamble, placing a folder on my desk. $20 million. You walk away, sign a non-compete, and Lynx gets absorbed into Novasphere. I didn't open the folder. "He sent his girlfriend to negotiate? That's either incredibly stupid or deliberately insulting." "Ex-girlfriend," she corrected, a bitter smile twisting her lips. "He's moved on to someone younger. From Harvard this time. Apparently. Berkeley wasn't prestigious enough." The schadenfreude was delicious, but I kept my expression neutral. "The answer is no." "He said you'd say that." She pulled out her phone, hit speaker. Ethan's voice filled my office like toxic gas. "Lauren, let's be rational. You've had your fun, proved your point, but we both know you can't compete at this level. Take the money. It's more than you deserve, considering you built this company on knowledge you gained during our marriage." "Knowledge I gained?" I laughed. Actually laughed. "Ethan, I wrote your first business plan. I designed your go-to-market strategy. I pitched to your first 3 investors while you were having a panic attack in the bathroom. Ancient history that you can't prove. Take the deal, Lauren, or I'll bury you." The line went dead. Sophia stood to leave, then paused. "He did the same thing to me, took my ideas, presented them as his own. The new girlfriend thinks she's special. She'll learn." She headed for the door, then turned back. "Win this, please. Someone needs to." The war began immediately. Ethan poached 2 of my engineers with signing bonuses we couldn't match. He scheduled client meetings at the exact same times as ours, forcing prospects to choose. He undercut our pricing by 40%, taking losses just to starve us out. But I knew Ethan's playbook because I'd written it. Every move he made, I'd anticipated. When he poached my engineers, I'd already documented their code contributions. They couldn't take their work product. When he scheduled conflicting meetings, I moved mine to breakfast or dinner, showing flexibility his corporate structure couldn't match. When he undercut pricing, I emphasized value and long-term support, something Novasphere's reputation for abandoning smaller clients made impossible to promise credibly. The decisive moment came during the Colorado Energy Commission's vendor presentation. 5 companies competing, presenting sequentially. Novasphere went first. Ethan commanding the room with his usual charm, promising the moon with technology I recognized. It was based on my original environmental monitoring thesis from Wharton. We went last. I walked to the podium, my team behind me, and opened with a screenshot of my Wharton thesis. 5 years ago, I developed this framework for environmental data integration. You just saw a version of it presented by Novasphere. The difference is, I've spent the last 18 months perfecting it, not just repackaging it. I laid out our platform, piece by piece, showing not just what we could do, but what we'd already done. Fort Collins, Boulder, Aspen, case study after case study of actual results. Then I played my ace. Commissioner Bradley. I addressed the panel's chair directly. Your daughter Emma interned with us last summer. She can attest to our commitment to developing local talent, something we've noticed Novasphere outsources to offshore teams. Emma Bradley, sitting in the audience, nodded emphatically. I'd mentored her, taught her, treated her like the brilliant young engineer she was rather than someone's daughter to be leveraged. It wasn't calculated, it was just decent. But decency, I'd learned, was a competitive advantage in a world run by Ethan Caldwell's. The vote was unanimous. Lynx Dynamics won the contract. The retaliation was swift and vicious. 3 days after winning the Colorado Energy Commission contract, I woke to my phone exploding with notifications. CEO scorned, how Lauren Mitchell's vendetta against ex-husband threatens Colorado's green future, screamed the headline from TechCrunch. The byline belonged to Kevin Patterson, a journalist who'd mysteriously received a leaked dossier about my divorce, my mental instability, and my obsessive desire for revenge. The article was a masterpiece of insinuation. No outright lies, Ethan was too smart for that, but carefully crafted implications. Was I qualified, or was I just bitter? Was Lynx Dynamics legitimate, or was it an elaborate revenge plot? Could the state trust its environmental future to a woman who couldn't keep her marriage together? By noon, I'd lost 2 potential investors who'd been ready to sign. By evening, 3 clients called to reassess our contracts. My team gathered in our conference room, faces grim. We need to respond, Priya urged, her fingers already flying across her laptop. I can draft a statement. No. I stared at the article on my screen, seeing Ethan's fingerprints all over it. Defending makes us look guilty. We need to attack. But the hits kept coming. A concerned citizen reported us to the Better Business Bureau for questionable business practices. Our office internet was mysteriously cut 3 times in 1 week. James's car tires were slashed in our parking lot. Maria received anonymous calls warning her about working for a crazy woman. The breaking point came when the bank called. Ms. Mitchell, there's been a complaint about fraudulent activity on your business accounts. We need to freeze everything pending investigation. 48 hours without access to funds. Payroll was due. Rent was due. Everything was due. I sat in my apartment at 3 a.m., laptop open to our empty bank interface, feeling the walls close in. Ethan had learned from our marriage. He knew I fought harder when cornered, so he wasn't trying to corner me. He was trying to suffocate me slowly. That's when Clara Reyes called. Ms. Mitchell, I'm an investigative journalist with the Denver Post. I've been following your story, and something doesn't add up. These attacks on your company, they're too coordinated to be random. No comment, I said automatically. I'm not looking for a comment. I'm offering help. Ethan Caldwell destroyed my sister's startup 2 years ago using exactly these tactics. I've been documenting his pattern ever since. You're not his first victim, but you could be his last. We met at a diner in Aurora, away from Denver's tech scene. Clara was younger than I expected, late 20s, with the kind of determined eyes that reminded me of myself before Ethan had tried to dim them. "He's got a playbook," she said, sliding a folder across the table. 7 companies in 5 years, all competitors, all founded by women or minorities. All destroyed through media manipulation, financial strangulation, or acquisition under duress. I flipped through the evidence, my stomach churning. Sophie Chen's AI startup, buried under patent trolling. Rashid Kumar's renewable energy firm, slandered into bankruptcy. Nicole Williams's biotech company, acquired for pennies after an orchestrated PR crisis. Why didn't they fight back? I asked. With what money? What platform? What proof? Ethan's too smart to leave fingerprints. Usually. She pulled out her phone, showed me a recording. But he got cocky with you. My source at TechCrunch recorded him dictating that article about you, word for word. The relief was overwhelming. Then came the rage. We published this. Not yet. Clara's smile was sharp. We need more. We need him to overplay his hand. Can you survive another month? I thought about my team, about the contracts on the line, about everything we'd built. We'll survive, but I need that bank freeze lifted. Give me 24 hours. She delivered in 12. The investigation was suddenly resolved. Our accounts unfrozen. Clara wouldn't say how. But I suspected her editor had made some calls. The Denver Post had weight that a startup couldn't match. Clara's exposé dropped on a Wednesday morning like a precision-guided missile. The Teflon Tyrant. How Ethan Caldwell built an empire on stolen ideas and destroyed careers ran across the front page of the Denver Post's business section and immediately went viral. 7 former victims on record, recorded conversations, financial documents showing coordinated attacks. The recording of Ethan dictating my hit piece was the smoking gun. Within hours, Novasphere's stock plunged 12%. By afternoon, 3 board members called emergency meetings. Ethan's carefully crafted image, the genius entrepreneur, the visionary leader, cracked like ice under spring sun. My phone rang nonstop. The same investors who'd rejected me suddenly wanted meetings. Clients who'd wavered came back with apologies and longer contracts. But the sweetest call came from David Kim at Elevation Partners. Lauren, I owe you an apology. We should have evaluated Lynx on its merits, not its history. We'd like to lead your Series A, $15 million at a $60 million valuation. A year ago, I would have jumped at it. Now, I had options. $20 million at $80 million and 2 board seats, stay with founding team. You've learned the game, he said, respect creeping into his voice. Deal. The universe has a sense of humor. The day our funding closed, we moved into new offices in downtown Denver, the same building as Novasphere. 3 floors down. Ethan and I crossed paths in the lobby that first morning. He looked haggard, designer suit hanging loose on a frame that had lost its swagger. You think you've won, he hissed, stepping close enough that I could smell his fear masquerading as cologne. This isn't over. You're right, I agreed. It's just beginning. Our breakthrough product launched 2 weeks later, EnviroSync 3.0, a platform that could integrate with any existing environmental monitoring system and reduce data processing costs by 70%. We'd been developing it quietly for months, but the publicity from Clara's article created perfect market conditions. Fortune called it the Tesla of environmental data. The tipping point came from an unexpected source. The Department of Energy announced a nationwide initiative for renewable resource optimization. With a $500 million budget for technology implementation, they wanted a single platform that could scale from rural communities to major metropolitan areas. The contract would establish the winner as the de facto standard for environmental data management in America. Both Novasphere and Lynx Dynamics made the final round. But this time, we weren't David facing Goliath. We were equals. I stood before the Department of Energy panel in Washington. No longer the abandoned wife from Denver, but a CEO who'd built something from nothing. My presentation was flawless. Not because I'd practiced it 100 times, though I had, but because I believed in every word. Link's Dynamics isn't just offering technology, I concluded. We're offering transformation. Every line of code, every feature, every innovation comes from a team that understands what it means to fight for something bigger than profit margins. We're not building a company, we're building a future. The applause was immediate. Ethan, presenting after me, stumbled through his slides. His usual charm felt forced, his promises hollow. He kept glancing at me in the audience, as if my presence was a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. When the DOE announced Link's Dynamics as the primary contractor, with Novasphere relegated to a minor subcontractor role, I didn't gloat, I didn't even smile. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about something larger, proving that brilliance dismissed is brilliance delayed, not brilliance destroyed. The summit was invitation only, the kind of gathering where 9-figure deals were sketched on napkins and entire industries pivoted over whiskey. The Global Innovation Forum brought together the top 50 tech CEOs in the country. And for the first time, Lauren Mitchell was on the list. I almost declined. These were Ethan's people, his world, the very room where I'd been dismissed as just a wife 3 years ago. But Maria convinced me otherwise. You don't go there for them. You go there to show every other woman watching that the door is open. The Broadmoor in Colorado Springs had been transformed into a tech utopia for the weekend. I walked those gilded hallways in a suit I'd bought with my own money, earned from my own company, representing my own vision. The name tag read, Lauren Mitchell, CEO, Link's Dynamics. And it felt like armor. The opening mixer was thick with familiar faces, VCs who'd rejected me, journalists who'd dismissed me, competitors who'd underestimated me. They approached now with calculated smiles and careful congratulations. I accepted their revised opinions with grace I didn't feel, remembering every slight. Then the crowd parted, and there he was. Ethan, holding court near the bar with a diminished circle of loyalists. Our eyes met across the room, and for a moment, time collapsed. I saw the man I'd married, brilliant and broken, using charm like currency because he'd never learned any other way to connect. The summit organizer, Patricia Winters, clinked her glass. Before dinner, we have a special panel on competitive innovation in environmental tech. I'd like to invite our 2 Colorado representatives to share their insights, Ethan Caldwell and Lauren Mitchell. The setup was transparent. Drama sold tickets, even at this level, but refusing would look weak. So I took my place on stage beside my ex-husband, 2 chairs and a lifetime apart. The moderator, a Bloomberg anchor who smiled like a shark, went straight for blood. You two have quite a history. How does personal experience shape professional competition? Ethan leaned forward, all practiced sincerity. Lauren and I shared a life once. I'm proud of what she's accomplished, though I worry that Link's Dynamics is built more on emotional vendetta than sustainable business practice. Revenge isn't a business model. The room held its breath. 3 years ago, I would have been destroyed. Now, I smiled. Ethan's right. Revenge isn't a business model. I paused, letting agreement settle before the strike. That's why Link's Dynamics is built on innovation, integrity, and inclusion, values that create sustainable success. Our 340% year-over-year growth and the DOE contract aren't revenge, they're results. Though I understand why Ethan might struggle to recognize the difference. A ripple of nervous laughter. The shark anchor smelled blood. Mr. Caldwell, Novasphere's stock has dropped 30% since the Denver Post investigation. How do you respond to allegations of corporate sabotage? Ethan's jaw tightened. Unsubstantiated rumors from a bitter ex-wife and a journalist with an agenda. I built Novasphere from nothing. Actually, I interrupted, my voice calm as a frozen lake. You built it from my business plan, my strategic framework, and my sleepless nights. But please, continue. He turned to me, mask slipping. You were a supportive spouse, Lauren. Don't rewrite history just because you couldn't handle being what, Ethan? Just a wife? The words cracked like a whip. Yes, you said that. Multiple times. To rooms full of people who are sitting here right now. Tell me, how many of their ideas did you steal too? Or was I special? The room was electric. Phones appeared, recording everything. Ethan stood abruptly. This is unprofessional. I won't participate in a circus. Sit down, Ethan. My voice carried command I'd earned. For once in your life, don't run when things get difficult. He froze, then slowly returned to his seat. The anchor looked like Christmas had come early. Let's discuss the future, I continued, addressing the room now. Innovation in environmental tech requires collaboration, transparency, and, most importantly, acknowledging where ideas truly come from. At Lynx Dynamics, every contribution is credited, every voice is heard, every person is valued. That's not revenge, that's revolution. The applause started slowly, then built to thunder. But I wasn't done. Ethan, you asked about my business model. Let me be clear, I don't compete with you out of spite. I compete with you because the market deserves better than theft disguised as genius. My success isn't about your failure, it's about my refusal to let your opinion of me become my reality. I stood, extending my hand to him. Good luck with the subcontract work on the DOE project. Lynx Dynamics looks forward to your support role. He stared at my hand like it was a snake, then shook it as cameras clicked. His grip was weak, palm sweaty, mine was firm, steady, certain. The headline in the Wall Street Journal read, "The Reversal: How Lauren Mitchell Built an Empire from the Ashes of a Marriage." It was accompanied by a photo from the Innovation Summit, me walking away from the panel, head high, while Ethan sat frozen on stage, looking like a king who'd just realized his throne was made of sand. 6 months later, I stood in Lynx Dynamics' new headquarters, a LEED Platinum building in downtown Denver with our logo visible from the highway Ethan took to his shrinking office every day. We employed 200 people, had contracts in 37 states, and Fast Company had just named us the most innovative environmental tech company of the year. Novasphere's board had voted Ethan out 2 weeks prior. The company was being restructured, possibly sold. Sophia Martinez had started her own firm. I'd quietly invested as an angel, though she didn't know it was me. The girlfriend from Harvard had written a tell-all Medium post about Ethan's manipulation tactics that garnered 2 million views. The empire he'd built on stolen dreams and dismissed voices had crumbled like ancient parchment exposed to air. I was reviewing our IPO paperwork when my assistant knocked. "Ms. Mitchell, there's an Ethan Caldwell here to see you. No appointment." I could have said no, could have let him sit in the lobby until security escorted him out, could have twisted the knife one final turn. Instead, I said, "Send him in." He looked smaller, grayer, wearing jeans and a polo instead of his armor of designer suits. He stood awkwardly in my office, the corner office with views of the Rockies, the office he'd once told me I'd never earn. "Lauren." He couldn't meet my eyes. I wanted to say, "If you're here to apologize, don't." I set down my pen, gave him my full attention. "I don't need it anymore." "Then what do you need?" "Nothing from you. That's the point. Ethan, I needed your validation, your recognition, your respect for so long that I forgot I could give those things to myself. You calling me just a wife was the greatest gift you ever gave me. It forced me to discover who I really was." He laughed bitterly. "So I created my own destroyer?" "No. You revealed your own incompetence. Every success you had came from someone else's brilliance, mine, Sophia's, probably dozens of others. Without us, you were just a man with charm and no substance, playing entrepreneur with other people's ideas." "I loved you," he said quietly. "In my way. Your way was possession, not love. Your way was diminishment, not partnership. Your way was theft, not sharing." I stood, moved to the window. "But I should thank you. If you hadn't underestimated me, I might have underestimated myself forever." He turned to leave, paused at the door. "The company you've built, it's everything I pretended Novasphere was." "No," I corrected. It's everything Novosphere could have been if you'd ever truly seen the people around you. After he left, I returned to my desk, to the work of building something real. My phone buzzed with messages, congratulations on the latest contract, invitations to speak at conferences, requests for mentorship from young women navigating their own dismissive partners. Clara Reyes had published a book about corporate theft and gender discrimination, dedicating it to the women who were told they were just anything. It sat on my desk next to a photo from last week, my team and I ringing the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange as Lynx Dynamics went public at a $2.3 billion valuation. Someone had leaked a video from that investment summit 3 years ago, the moment Ethan had said those 3 words. Just a wife. It had gone viral with the hashtag much more than just. Women from around the world shared their stories of being diminished, dismissed, and then discovering their own power. I pulled up the video, watched my younger self standing frozen in that ballroom, diamond earrings catching the light as my world shattered. If I could go back, I'd whisper to her, "This is not your ending, this is your beginning. Every just they throw at you is fuel for the fire you're about to become." My assistant knocked again. "Ms. Mitchell, the Fortune interview is here." "Send them in." The journalist's first question was predictable. "How does it feel to have built a company that not only rivals but surpasses your ex-husband's?" I smiled, the kind of smile that comes from genuine peace rather than vindication. "I didn't build Lynx Dynamics to rival anyone, I built it to matter. The fact that it succeeded while Novosphere failed isn't revenge, it's evidence. Evidence that brilliance dismissed doesn't disappear, it just finds a better home." Any advice for women in similar situations? Yes, they were wrong about you. Whatever they said you were, they were wrong. You are not just anything. You are everything they feared you could become. So, become it. The interview would run with the headline, "From just a wife to just getting started," because even at the peak, I wasn't done. There were more mountains to climb, more voices to amplify, more proof to provide that the best revenge isn't destroying those who wronged you. It's building something so magnificent that their opinion becomes irrelevant. That night, I stood on my office balcony, Denver sparkling below, the mountains dark against the stars. Somewhere in that city, Ethan was learning what I'd learned 3 years ago, what it feels like to be underestimated, dismissed, forgotten. But I wasn't thinking about him. I was thinking about tomorrow's board meeting, next quarter's expansion, the environmental tech accelerator we were launching for female founders. I was thinking about the future, one where no woman would ever be called just anything again. They said I was just a wife. They were right, I was. Now I'm everything else. Thank you so much for listening to this story of transformation and triumph. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel for more powerful narratives of revenge, redemption, and resilience. Share your thoughts about Lauren's journey in the comments. What would you have done in her position? Until next time. Remember, you're never just anything. You're everything you choose to become.